leadership to hash out some simple political compromises during the phase of transition and move forward as quickly as possible.
Okay, we will be talking about those political compromises. I have some questions for you that have been submitted by the public. Now, let me ask you this. Recently, about 2 weeks ago, there was an audio that was sent out by Jumba Akuro, in which he stated that the leaders held a meeting. Were you invited to that meeting? And if so, why did you not participate?
Yes, I held discussions with some of the organizers, I think a year ago, when they were still doing the planning. But I have said repeatedly that we should stop calling anyone who creates a two-persons group who comes on Facebook and talk about the Amazonian struggle a leader of this endeavor. When we do that, we proliferate, the space with everyone. No, everyone is important, but not everyone is a leader. Not because you scream a lot, not because you abuse and attack, that makes you a leader. And they are constituted groups within our struggle. You have the Amazonian Governing Council that is driving the liberation agenda. You have the IG that came about through the process of hijacking the SCACOV initiative. Those are the two principal groups. And I think if we focus on these two principal groups, it will enhance the possibility of collaboration and a more resource liberation agenda that can quicken, Cameroon's demise. I will not, I traveled to Nigeria. I met Siseko. I traveled to the United States. I met Dr. Sako. I met Dr. Kwanga. I met Bo. I met John. I met all of them. It has never worked. Why the so-called bringing leaders together has not worked is because we bring in journalists, we bring in communicators, we bring in political activists in the name of leaders, and we are not able to agree on anything. Secondly, you have some of these groups are constituted under Dr. Sako in ARC, and he should speak for them. He should represent their interest. So I will not be wasting any more time at a particular time when I think we need focus and concentration in enhancing our strategy on the ground. I have made it clear I am open for discussions with the IG on the kinds of compromises which I talked about initially for us to move forward. But it will be a huge distraction and a waste of time and resources, as it has happened in the past 4 years, to always bring together anybody. Bring together anybody and begin some propaganda, begin some deviation, distraction from the core issues that are required. You wouldn't hear these gentlemen, most of them are men, come into a room and emerge, not with a press release, but with $100,000 to buy more arms for our forces at a time when La Republique is increasing its assault on the ground. So I think Amazonians have recognized those who lead them, and I think they should be focused during the period of transition. Everyone who has been, doing work within constituted groups, whether social media bloggers, prisoners of war, activists, will be constituted in the transitional authority to make sure that we build the systems that will be implanted for the period of governance. And anyone who wants to lead, who wants to become a politician, will present themselves in their constituency to be elected into parliament. And if they have the majority seat in parliament, they can become the head of government.
All right. So with that in mind, there is also a new group that was formed in 2020 called the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation. Do you consider the coalition, the CDN, as a new political bloc within the Ambazonian War of Independence, or how would you define what they do or the significance of what they do in terms of Ambazonian War of Independence?
It's not in my powers to qualify or quantify or describe who groups are. Their charter, their bylaws defines who they are and explain their activities carefully. In terms of what the coalition is doing, is doing great. Is been doing a lot of targeted diplomacy. He's been involved in very serious diplomatic work. All what they are doing, we have also been and are still doing those things. And I think that um, what is critical, and I think with respect to your question, is this: the Amazonian Governing Council and others who are the main bodies, representing the aspirations of our people, will be able to constitute a team of seasoned negotiators, including, members of the coalition who will report to the leaders. That should be made absolutely clear. I know in this struggle, you know, you go on the social media, you're reading all sort of stuff. You see one time Mr. Dr. Fontaine comes up, he's setting up something. You see one time Dr. Makongo comes up, and everyone is jittering. This is what should be clear. None of these people will be negotiating on behalf of Ambazonia except duly mandated by the established groups. That one Ambazonians should understand. What they are doing is what we call lobbying. They are doing good work. They will continue to lobby. They can lobby for groups. They can lobby on behalf of themselves. They can lobby on behalf of Ambazonians as a nation. But when it comes to the delegation of power, it will be done by the established groups. And because negotiations or negotiators, receive mandate from established groups and discuss to achieve the objectives for which those groups were established, which is independence. These groups are subject to public scrutiny to make sure their objective is in line with that of the Amazonian people. And so no one will speak for us who is not clear on their objectives and whose position is not very clear to be that for independence. So we should applaud all those who are doing this lobbying. They are visible because they are not actors in the struggle. When we do diplomacy, it cannot be visible because if that is the case, Yaoundé will accuse those people of legitimizing the leadership, and that's troubling. But non actors in the conflict can do lobbying and do that publicly. But we are engaged in far reaching diplomatic initiatives, far bigger diplomatic initiatives, also sometimes liaising with the efforts that they are putting in place. And what we should be expecting is that whatever they are doing, they should liaise with the leadership and make sure we are all on the same page. And that is very critical going forward.
I want to ask you this question that that was submitted to us from Ground Zero, and they ask,